Howdy, team. Happy Thursday. Merry Christmas, and welcome to Fort Lewis. I'm so glad to have you in my home. You can see our Christmas tree here. We've had it up for a couple weeks now. Every year, Becca and I have the kids pick a new Christmas ornament, and as they have grown and their interests have changed, so has the style of ornaments that they pick every year. So we've got superheroes, we've got Super Grover, we've got cartoon characters, we added some instruments this year because the kids are in band now. I got a piece of bacon and Alamo up there, and then our tree topper. You can't quite see it, but it's a Texas Rangers helmet. So a lot of fun stuff going on. We'd love for you to come over and see more of our Christmas tree and hear the stories of our ornaments. It's a lot of fun. This week, we're talking about anxiety and stress, depression, really just a whole lot of mental health stuff that I'm so thrilled that we're having this conversation. I think it's important because this is real life stuff, and we're looking at a great story in the scriptures to help us understand this facet. I spent some time talking to Dr. Lamance today about this issue. I wished I'd have been able to film him. He and I ended up just playing phone tag. So I'm going to relay some information that I had a conversation with him about. First and foremost, he wanted me to remind everyone there is a difference between clinical depression and situational depression. Clinical depression is when there is maybe a lack of a hormone or a chemical in someone's mind, or maybe a synapse is just not quite firing properly. That's when psychologists get involved. There's medicine involved. Literally, there's not necessarily anything that's affecting someone's depression outside of just what's going on internally. That's very, very real. We want to help and encourage people in that situation, and we certainly want people who are experiencing that to not feel any shame over that and to pursue help. Just like we want people who are experiencing situational depression to also pursue help. And that's where we find Elijah. He's experiencing situational depression. And Dr. Lamance walked me through a couple of things that I think is really, really cool. But let's differentiate those two things, make that really, really clear. The lesson doesn't necessarily do that. It's not bad, but it doesn't make that differentiation really, really clear. So let's do that so people understand kind of the terms that we're using. The other thing Dr. Lamance wanted me to point out was we need to remember this particular story. It's essential that we remember that Elijah was engaged in a supernatural battle before all of this began. And as a result of that supernatural battle, that's 1 Kings chapter 18. Remember, that's the Mount Carmel situation. That's him versus the prophets of Baal, fire falling down from heaven. All that was very supernatural. When people are engaged in supernatural issues, it physically drains them. The two things are tied together. In fact, he wanted me to specify that our soul and our spirit and our bodies are all intertwined. And when one of those three things is tired, it affects the other two. It can't not. And so when you're mentally tired, you're being physically drained. When you're spiritually tired, you can be physically drained. When you're physically tired, it can affect your spirit and your soul. So we got to take care of all three of those things. So Elijah is spiritually drained. As a result, he's physically drained. And on top of that, you know that after he had the prophet of Baal situation, he literally runs to the palace to go declare to them what has happened. And then that's when we see Jezebel threatening him, which was a very real threat. Elijah is not running away off of a perceived fear. This is a very real threat that he's facing. And so then he runs away. And so at this point, he's physically tired. He's spiritually tired. And so there's no doubt that he's going to start feeling things emotionally and mentally, and just to be in a really, really poor place. So no, we're not at all surprised when we see God pull him aside. And number one, it is important to catch that God did. God fed him and God had him rest. And that's so, so essential. There are times when we need to slow down and certainly eat. And in some cases, certainly in my case, I see this with teenagers. In fact, I'm guilty of this too. You just go and go and go and you forget to eat. And feeding our bodies matters. And then not sleeping dramatically affects our mental health. Again, going back to teenagers in particular, because so many of them don't sleep enough, that's why they're emotional basket cases. So moms and dads pass this along, take their cell phones from them, have them sleep. It makes a dramatic difference, right? But Elijah gets rest from God, gets food from God, but he's still just so torn up. And so he does. He goes to Mount Horeb, and he's literally just hiding. And he's trying to emotionally and mentally process all that's happened. And so God graciously meets him there. Notice, by the way, this situational depression doesn't just go away automatically. It takes time, just like clinical depression takes time, even with medicine. Rarely does depression ever get fixed immediately, at least real depression. And we can talk about depths of depression and so on. And Dr. Lamance even brought that up too. He used a couple of different analogies, which are really, really cool. He talked about number one. I think this is a great one. He's used this before with the church. If a 1-ton truck is trying to pull 10 tons, it's not that there's anything wrong with the truck. It's just a gigantic load for anyone to take, and so that truck needs help. This is where human beings are. It's not that there's things that are wrong with us. We're just experiencing a dramatic load that we're trying to carry, and we need help. This is where the Lord comes in. This is where the family of God comes in, right? And then the other example that he gave that was really, really good is discovering what emotions are going on. And he so used the analogy of imagine having things hidden under layers and layers and layers of washcloth. And so you pull up one washcloth and you find, oh, yeah, there's a we'll use the princess and the pea analogy here. Oh, there's the pea. That's the problem. Oh, wait, there's another washcloth. You pull that one up. Oh, wow, there's another pea there. Like you just keep uncovering issues that are going on in our lives that have been causing irritations. These things can mount on us. And if we don't take them to the Lord, and if we don't take them to the family of God, we can very well end up in a situation like Elijah did. So what did Elijah finally do? Or what did God do? The Lord showed up. And this is the famous part of the passage where God sent, an earthquake and sent a tornado and he sent fire, and none of those things got, or actually says specifically that the Lord wasn't in those things. It's a bunch of noise, right? And dramatic stuff. It was God's still small voice. That's how the King James used to put it. And I still think that's just a sweet way to describe it. God's still small voice, tiny whisper almost. That got Elijah's attention. Moms, sometimes that works with your kids. You can yell and you can holler and you can scream and they'll totally miss it. And sometimes when you just whisper to them, it catches their attention. Elijah's attention was caught. God asked him the questions. Keep in mind, Elijah is still just because he's emotionally drained, he's not seeing the world properly. Elijah, why are you here? I'm the only one left that's serving you. We know that's not true. And Elijah knew that was not true, but he's so tired, he's just not seeing things clearly. So the Lord lovingly, carefully encourages him. The Lord gives him a job to do, and the Lord gets him moving. And there's a lot for us to learn from that. Using still, small, quiet, loving voice with one another, keeping each other engaged in the ministry, not letting anybody hiding out. The lesson brings these things out really, really well. The bottom line is this. This information, this message is so, so important. So please don't skip out on it. Please take it seriously. Please continue to be gentle with your connection groups, but also continue to encourage them to speak up. Let our connection groups be shame-free zones. When people get real about what they're experiencing, let's find ways to lovingly encourage them. And then absolutely continue to point people in the direction of impact. That is one of the jewels of our church that God has gifted us to minister, obviously, to folks in our church, but the community as well. I've talked for a long time, so I'm going to let you go. Guys, we love you. We're praying for you. Can't wait to see you on Sunday. Merry Christmas. We'll see you later. Bye.